there was such a mystery around that, and such a call, and such a
Wow.
longing that it sparked in myself,
Mm.
that I was really, really catching fire there. It was such an exotic thing that created such a longing.
Action!
Welcome to the Spirit of Yoga. We are Kirsten
Devdas.
And Burkhard.
from the Akasha Yoga Academy. In today's Tea Chat, we're going to talk about the topic of connection.
So, a possibility for us to connect from heart to heart, and an invitation for you to look behind the scenes. So, one of our intentions is to provide you with the background perspective of our yoga in daily life. What does a typical day of a yogini in Bali look like? In this direction we go. But before we come to the present moment, we start with the past, and then we work ourselves towards the present moment and possibly the yogic future. But we of course know that we're living in the timeless eternal present moment, so it's all one and the same. So the first question I have for our local guests here is the question of when and how did you catch fire with a spark of yoga? When did you feel that spark of inspiration? When did you feel this, like, wow, like there's something genuinely relevant in this yogic journey for me? Maybe Devdas, as you're one of our elders, and not just by the color of the beard, but by the
I was going to say
dedication.
it's only the beard.
But we're talking, I think, more than 3 decades
Yep.
of hands-on yogic journey, and
Yeah.
not just here and there a little bit, but from some previous anecdotes, I remember that pretty early on, you were diving into the deep end of yoga straight away, already in your teenage times.
Yes.
So
yes.
maybe you can share some early inspirations. What was catching your attention? What was initially opening your heart to this wonderful path?
Yeah, the funny thing is that they had in my high school this program where people in the community who were outstanding, like parents in the community who were outstanding, could come to the high school and do kind of add-on courses in the afternoon after school. And one of the men was this beautiful, profoundly beautiful Sikh man from India who really knew yoga like in his bones. It was kind of very, very, very present and alive for him, and he was a beautiful example, I think, of a yogic life. I remember just kind of experiencing the class and just being totally, totally blown away. And then, kind of basically chasing him around, like before class and after class, starting to ask him questions like, what's this all about? Like, are you peaceful all the time? I was in my teenage years, so I just had all these kind of funny questions, but he was extremely, extremely loving and tolerant of my questions, and really sat with me and answered a lot of the things that I wanted to know. And then that just kind of naturally led to an unfolding where I got curious about all the different aspects of yoga. I got more curious about meditation, more curious about pranayama, um, and then at some point in my journey, I read this book, Autobiography of a Yogi, and that was really like the spark that just set the whole thing into a blaze. It was already burning, but then I read that book, and it was like it was beyond burning. It was like the whole house was on fire, and it was just
Yogananda's fire just burning in you.
I just couldn't find enough information. It's just like every book that I could get my hands on, uh, you know, every stone, just trying to turn it. I would just go into bookshops and find the yoga corner and just take as much as I could, because I just felt like in my heart I so much wanted to learn and to grow and to deepen into the experience. Um, So that was probably the first spark that caught fire. What about you, Kirsten?
For me, it didn't happen in the West. It didn't happen until my very first journey, actually, into India. Like, I didn't practice yoga or go to any classes. Like, in my teenage years, it was just not common. Like, it didn't reveal itself. We went to India, and in India, I had the recommendation of a friend, of a colleague from university, like what to do in India, like just traveling, backpacking, what's cool to do in India. And he recommended to go to Shivananda ashram in the very south of India, and some other tourist travel tips for young people. And we actually really went to this ashram and checked in for a week of program in this Shivananda ashram. And it's quite a big ashram. I had no idea what to expect in an ashram, in a yoga ashram, but sounded cool. And it was a full program, like get up while it's still dark, scrape your tongue, and meditate and do mantra chanting and stand on your head, and
The same thing that all you guys are
philosophy,
doing.
and like all of that. And somehow there was such a mystery around that, and such a call, and such a
Wow.
longing that it sparked in myself, that I was really, really catching fire there. It was such an exotic thing that created such a longing. And leaving the ashram there, I took the book, a Shivananda yoga book, in which there was description of sun salutations, of diet, of pranayam, of meditation. And I took it home, and at home in Berlin in these days, I was not attracted to go in any kind of gym and do their yoga stuff like that. There was no mystery in that. There was no, it didn't call me. So I did my sun salutations with my book, and just got myself keeping in touch with yoga. And a little later, I found a book in a bookstore, Beginner's Mind, probably. It's very known to
Zen
you
Mind,
guys.
Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind by Shunryu Suzuki, famous Zen Buddhist master who brought the Zen practice to San Francisco in the early days.
Exactly. And there I read this description how to meditate, to just see oneself as a swinging door in space. And in breath, kind of swinging door into one direction, out breath in the other direction. That was my meditation instruction that I had for quite a while. And I practiced in this way. I practiced Shivananda sun salutations by myself with a book, and meditation in this way. But somehow, like, the classes in the West, they really didn't call me at all. But I had a longing. There was such a mystery around that, and it was clear that something big is waiting there. But the way I did see it around myself didn't call me. So I went on my own a little bit until another journey to India a little later, where it just kind of boomed and made it come into my life big time.
Yeah, I remember those early student days where also in university, actually, there was like these university sport classes where there's whatever reduced price access for the students to join, and they did also have a 1 semester yoga class, and it was like in some gym workout room, and it was I still remember the blonde woman, older lady, and she was an Iyengar teacher, which I didn't know at that time, understood later. And we practiced for a whole semester, like 4 months or something, each pose of the sun salutations, and that was it. She just took apart the whole sun salutations, and then whatever we were doing, peer-to-peer adjustments of down dog and how to rotate the shoulders and all the alignment obsession of Iyengar, all the details. That was my first introduction. One semester, whatever, 12 poses of sun salutations. I think we didn't even combine them. We just practiced them separately. It wasn't even a flow. So just the poses themselves. So that was an early one. And then it actually just came to my mind when you were talking about this Sikh person from India who you met. I completely forgot about it, didn't think about it in like a decade, but just sparked again in my mind. Two things. There was, I got offered a job as a tutor to come to people's houses and care for the kids, and it was like a bit of a luxury offer, like private teacher at home, something. Very well paid student job. And I was applying for that, recommended by a friend, and it was a holistic training with whatever, like kinesthetics and this and that, some different modalities, and also yoga. And I was super nervous before the job interview if I would get the job. Somehow it was like a promising thing. And they said like, yeah, we'll also see if you have some skills like qigong and yoga. And I was like, yeah, yoga. I can do yoga. I'm good at yoga. I know. But I didn't have a clue about the whole thing. And then I just knew one thing which I somehow picked up somewhere. It was like bringing the arms up above head, Tadasana style, but at the same time coming on one's toes and synchronizing that. Coming up on the toes, arms up, balancing on the toes, and both heels and arms back down. I was practicing that as my preparation for the job interview. And I think I didn't have to perform it. But anyhow, so that was one early touch. And then directly after, I was into education, studied psychology, education, and so on. And I was into free learning and the whole libertarian homeschooling and so on. And there was a conference about free education in Berlin, international conference. I had a nice connection there, network, something, and international guests. And I was at this first time conference for me, especially young, this, that. And there were people from a free school from Ladakh, which is in the Himalayas, in the northwest of India, in the Himalayan mountains, super high up. And they had like a holistic yogic school free learning project in Ladakh, supported by some Western philanthropy, donors, etc. And I somehow hooked in with them, connected. And in the lunch break, I remember the guy was taking me to the park and was introducing me to some pranayama. And it was like, wow, it's so special here, this yogic master from the Himalayas, and I get a one-on-one private session. And I was so inspired by it and felt myself even more like a holistic teacher and yogi. And then I tried to grow into that role and studied more about spirituality and took my psychology studies towards philosophy and spiritual connection. Integrating science and spirituality was one of my main things in university for years then to come. Good. So that's some early biographical episodes, how life plays, and we never know, and we forget, and then suddenly remember episodes again. So next in the biographical journey will be the next steps. When and how did yoga become the center of your life? When did it move from kind of a curiosity, some excitement, some early adventures? When did it become so prevalent and benevolent, so dominant and central to your lives?
Yeah.
Maybe Devdas directly continuing.
Beautiful. You know, I was talking about reading Autobiography of a Yogi and just that setting me basically fully on fire for the yogic life. And then I moved very briefly to a community in California that was all yogis, an all yogic community. And there was a man working in that community down at the there was a general store in the center of the community where you could buy everything. And there was a man working at that store. And I said to him, you know, I have it in my heart that I'm going to move to India. And he was like, he just looked at me and he said, if you move to India, you're never coming back. And it was just felt in my heart. Probably he's right. Like the call was that strong. And within a year, I'd already moved out to India, like shifted to India. And
Sorry, I got to kick in there for a moment. it's not a small thing in your early years to somehow pack your bags and then go to India.
Yeah.
What call was there to start that move where you already had the anticipation, like, oh, maybe I'm not going to come back anytime soon? Like, how do you even have the courage to travel there kind of long term?
I
Or
just
what was the invitation? Where did you go to? What was the
I
context?
I went to go visit people that I had known from yoga and meditation circles, and they were starting
Okay.
kind of they were starting meditation centers in India, basically.
Okay.
So I went and kind of placed myself on their doorstep, basically.
Here I
Here I am.
I'm supposed to move here.
And but I think somehow they were extremely beautiful, extremely intuitive souls, and I think they also felt that it was the right thing. Maybe there was a few bumps in the beginning, but overall, I think they accommodated me beautifully. And I sometimes tell the story in the Zoom calls about the benefit of setting up a space for yoga. Essentially, when I first moved to India, they didn't really have space for me. They were just kind of creating centers. There wasn't really a place for me to stay or anything like that. And so, but inside of one of the houses, they had basically a double laundry room. Like one was supposed to be a place where you did the laundry, one was supposed to be the place where you dried the laundry, and that became my bedroom. But the fun thing about it was basically I set up my practice space in the first room, put my yoga mat, put my altar, put everything, to inspire me to practice. And then there was just enough room in the second room for my bed, basically, my bed and kind of some clothes and some things. So I had to walk through the practice room to get to the bed. And many times, it was a very intense time of my life. Actually, there was a lot of work going on. Kind of creating new centers was like we were meditating, but other than that, we were just engaged all day long in working and
Karma yoga.
doing service, karma yoga, trying to get these centers up and running.
Which is not an easy feat. It sounds kind of like, yeah, but in an Indian city, more or less kind of newcomers, Westerners, sure, some local support connections.
Many
But the whole logistics in India, it's like,
integrated evenly between Indians and Westerners.
Okay.
But my teacher had asked a few of us, 4 of us at that time, specifically to go out and start these meditation centers. And we were all young. Like, I think we were all under 30 years of age. And when we started talking to Indian people about it, they were like, "There's no way that's going to work."
Yeah. Who do you think you are?
a bunch of young guys go out into India teaching pranayama and meditation. It's not going to work, but it did work, and I think it worked partially because people could see that we were very, very, very genuine in our search, and they could just feel the depth. Actually, what we started doing, we were just kind of traveling all around India, and what we would do is we would do a free event, and mostly we would play kirtan at those free events, and it was just a group of very, very, very beautiful souls, and then we would introduce some basics of meditation, and then the next day we would do kind of a paid event where people could come if they wanted to. And some of those free events, there was like 1,000 people.
Oh, India.
It's just like in India, it's just
1,000
like
people.
the love of yoga is so powerful and strong. It's just
Sure.
like, okay, a free yoga event, boom, like half the town shows up. And usually afterwards, significantly less than 1,000 people would come to the courses,
Sure.
but enough would come that we could start to generate enthusiasm and energy. And then for years I used to joke that I was like a spiritual businessman, because we had kind of, I would say, 10 or 15 centers in major cities in India, and basically the 4 of us were always on a train. Like, we were on a train in between these centers, just giving classes and sharing and doing things. And this is one of the joys of India. I mean, there's just so many like I bow within my soul to the greatness of India for all of the blessings showered upon me in my time there. It was a tremendously beautiful, inspiring part of my life. But the four of us would be on the train, and we would be basically break out all the instruments. If it was like an 8 hour long train, we'd be playing kirtan on the train for at least 7 of those hours.
And half the wagon joins in.
And half the wagon joins in, more than half. Just like people crowded around, people falling out of the bunks on the next train,
That's how it
just
goes.
trying to get close to feel the energy.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking in India like 24-hour train rides,
Yeah, can
and
be.
like with these bunk beds
Yeah.
and filthy, dirty, dusty, and the vendors, some physically disabled people crawling through, offering some chai, and vendors, and the whole circus.
Yeah,
And then you part of the circus playing bhajan in the train wagon, and everybody's
was,
singing along, crowding for the bhajans.
It was somehow very, very, very special.
I imagine.
Beautiful time, but yeah, it's was a strong labor of love at the same time. Like it was
Sure.
pretty intense to be all the time moving. But also I feel like that brought really tremendous spiritual benefits.
Sure.
Also, like, you know, there's the just go into it with your whole heart and with all your love and your enthusiasm. And the guys who I was working with, they're still some of my closest friends to this day. You know,
Sure.
they're just, there was friendships and formed in that fire that were just unspeakably beautiful. So it was a very, very special, beautiful time in my life.
Wow. Wow. Into the deep end. Straight in. Yeah. I just have to mention, like, if you haven't been to India, I dare to say you cannot imagine how intense, challenging, demanding, crazy, and wild India is. It's like just anything you could just fantasize, dream of an extreme place, and then exponential 7 on top of that. It's
Yeah.
like the things you see, it's just anywhere you look, it's just like, whoa, like I would have never imagined in my whole life that this is even a possibility. And it's just like, yeah, normal, of course. And then you're like, whoa.
But
One gets used to it, and it's a
Yeah.
natural flow in that, and
and
trust,
for
surrender.
for my particular case, like, probably sounds strange to everybody, but like, I never felt 100% at home growing up in America. I always felt like something was just missing, and I couldn't put my finger on what, but it was just something felt like it was missing. And when I got to India, it was like, that's what was missing.
Finally back home.
Just finally back home. And also, like, here's a place where the center of everyone's life, like, is basically dedication to the divinity, dedication to yoga. Like I said, you give a free event, 1,000 people come. Why? Because that's where their hearts are. That's
Yeah.
where their interests are.
Yeah.
When you're walking down the street, the sweet shop is Krishna Sweets. Like,
Sure, of course.
On the other side of the road is the laundry shop, and it's
Ganesha
Sri
laundry.
Ram Laundry or
Sri Ram.
Ganesha Laundry or whatever. It's just constant reminders in your field of vision about, you know, the beauty and the sacredness of life.
No.
And that really being a lived experience, you know, being kind of like everybody's experience. And also in a weird way, I feel like it's a land where magic is really still alive. Like
Tangible.
the magicness of life is still profoundly alive. I remember being on a train one time. I had a friend come visit me from America, and we were on a train one time, and this man said, we were sitting in the berth with this man, and he said, you know, I'm a palm reader. I'd like to read your hand. And I was like, I would not usually say yes, but I knew for the benefit of my friend, I was like, absolutely yes, 100% yes. And he started to read my hand, and my friend knew a lot of the details of my life. And the man was absolutely 100% accurate, down to years that things had happened in my life. Like, this year this happened, this year this happened, at this time this happened. And, my friend was just turning white, Like, he had never seen anything like that in his life. And for me, it was just like, look, I've seen a lot more than this. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. It happens. Actually, we had a similar experience in Rishikesh where we went to an astrologer where I also would have full resistance against astrology and the skepticism and not really open to this type of guidance, etc. But then he was reading Kirsten's birth chart, Vedic astrology, and he had like the most impossible insights on siblings, brother, sister, on whatever, like you got some problem with your ear, which was like, yes, how do you know? Like ongoing, like, yeah. So India at its best. Cannot escape the center of yoga being in the center of your life when you stay for a bit longer in India. It's just so obvious. Wonderful. Wow. Reminds me of many of our old days in India. Kirsten, how and when did yoga move into the center of your life?
Also India.
India.
But I didn't know it would. So I didn't leave with the intention to dive into yoga in this way and to shift life around in this way. Like it was, I was studying architecture and I started getting into career, and I thought architecture is something that suits, on one hand, I feel I have a well-functioning planning mind, and at the same time I have like a longing for arts, and I felt like in architecture I can bring that together well. But during the studies, and especially as I started working, there was no passion. My heart wasn't set on fire, and I felt like this is a waste of every breath, basically, to not do something that fulfills your heart entirely. And I knew there is something that sets my heart on fire and I can stay with it. Like I just really knew that this exists. But I had no idea what it was. Architecture wasn't. So another trip to India actually showed that it is yoga. And I remember just living life in Berlin as an architect, or also before a student of architect. It felt like a chasing of goals, and fulfilling a goal leaves me empty and unfulfilled. Like there's like always waiting for, like when I do this project, for sure it will set my heart on fire, and the project is finished and it's like, okay, what's next? And like I felt I was living so much into the future, into expectations, and they stayed, speaking from a level of passion and being set on fire, they stayed completely unfulfilled. So it didn't work out. This life concept didn't work out, basically. And as I went to India, then again, once again, second time, we were traveling a little bit randomly at the beginning, and pretty soon finding ourselves in Dharamsala for a while, and then in Rishikesh.
That's North India. Dharamsala is a Tibetan Buddhist community, home to the Dalai Lama, the Tibetan refugees in the Himalayan foothills.
And there I felt again this longing and calling and this mystery of yoga and meditation, like being so alive and lived. And I saw, like in Dharamsala, I was so touched by the happiness of people, by this unshakable contentment, even though everybody Tibetan living there has a really, really hard history, like from this
devastating
fleeing from Tibet. Like Um, but people were so kind, so open hearted, so happy. I was so tremendously touched by that. Seeing that it's actually not, like my project should make me happy as an architect when I built this cool house, or uh, no, like they somehow didn't need this. Like they had like really devastating histories, but there was a contentment that inspired me so much, to search for where that comes from. And in Rishikesh, we checked into a yoga ashram, also just for a 1 week course to learn more yoga. Also, again, with that's where I picked up my Jalaneti and my all the Kriya stuff and whatnot. And um, I felt like, okay, it's clicking in again. And it was in the middle of winter, and the ashram shut down basically, but we could stay, like to just live there basically, without tourists, and be there for ourselves and practice yoga. And I was just, again, like not really with teacher, but practicing my own things that I picked up from my yoga book, from yoga course here and there, and practicing just right by the Ganga every morning, getting up, practicing meditation, which was like such an experience to sit down for 45 minutes with a timer and to just see what do I do with this, like what's happening in 45 minutes, eye closing, and like just discovering worlds and practicing the postures. And I still remember this sense of I arrive. Like I don't run for the practice to be finished and the final relaxation or anything. I just felt so content in posture practice, in the body, in movement, in breath, that I felt like, hey, I don't want to let go of this anymore. Like this is how I want to live life. Like to drop this running for something in the future that is kind of, when finally reaching there, not very fulfilling. And it was such a dropping into the moment and the contentment and the fulfillment that came with it, that it just stayed. Like it wasn't so clear right from the beginning that I would never go back to the West. It was just like being touched by that, but actually the result of that was not going back to the West anymore, like bit by bit selling everything and kind of opening all ties that have been there, and basically moving eastwards and making that the center of my life. Like I just knew I don't go back to where I came from, because I found something that lands me in contentment, that sets my heart on fire, that I just, I had no idea where this would lead towards. I had no plans of becoming a yoga teacher. And that was for me a very untypical character trait. Like the planning mind is quite active in me and well functioning. So like this, okay, you started your career as an architect, now you don't go back to that. Like what does that mean? Like what does that mean 5 years down the line, or 10, or what does that mean financially? What does that mean with our health and insurance system in Germany and whatnot? Like hundreds of questions. But somehow it just there was an enthusiasm, there was a sense of rightness, there was a sense of like it is just exactly what it needs to be, and it will show itself, and there will be an expression for that, there will be a space for that in life. Life will provide a space for that. That it was just happening, not going back anymore.
So trust. Trust that life will provide.
And the trust fueled by like this enthusiasm and joy of the heart and happiness. And then I started more systematically studying about postures, breath, meditation, like philosophy, whatnot. Like that just came into life then, and was applied.
Yeah, I remember
Wow.
that big journey through India. We were like
Mm.
maybe 7 months or so backpacking through India. And I remember actually in that ashram north of Rishikesh, at the shores of the Ganga River, um, many episodes are still in my
Yeah.
heart. There was a group of yogis from Iran who was also
Oh,
studying there.
yeah, right.
And Iran was kind of like infamously known for all the terrorists and stuff. And these Iranian yogis, they were like the most sweet and heart-opening and open-minded people. So it even things like that when traveling, there's so much eye-opening happening, and the local culture there, and sitting by the fire with a chapati on the bonfire, and the ice-cold Ganga River bathing, and the
Yeah.
the cremation, burning the dead bodies on the Ganga shores, and uh, all types of small and big things of the the nasal cleansing in the morning on the Ganga River, and like all these small and big things. And one thing I also remember is there were some passerby guests who stayed for a few days, uh, who were coming from their Vipassana retreats, and they were
Oh.
meditating on the rooftop terrace. And they told a story that they're soon they will finish their, I forgot, like seventh or ninth Vipassana retreat,
Oh
10-day
wow.
silent meditation
Wow.
retreat, and getting ready for the 21-day retreat. This was kind of the mission that they were on. I was like, whoa, like this is next level. How many 10-day silent retreats? 7, 9, what? And I remember also they had these meditation benches, these wooden
Oh,
benches to
yeah.
sit on. And as a consequence, actually, we signed up also for a Vipassana retreat afterwards, a few weeks later, traveling to South India. And we were scheduled for that Vipassana retreat. But I was getting more and more concerned about this 10-day silent retreat because, like, in this ashram, it was so difficult to sit on the floor. Like, my knees were like up like this. And after 7 minutes of meditation, my knees were already in my back. Like, oh my God, we'll survive 45 minutes and so many pillows and so on. Uh, and then in preparation of this 10-day Vipassana retreat, I felt like, okay, I need also one of these wooden benches. With this, I can survive and sit a bit longer and it will be good. And we were in Gokana at the coast, South India. And we went to a carpenter, and I made a drawing with a local craftsman to build a proper meditation bench out of mango wood, and like way too big and heavy and stuff. And it was finally ready. And then I called even in the retreat center, and I said, kind of like, do you have meditation benches? I asked first, and they said no. And then, okay, I will bring mine. And they said, no, no, you don't need a meditation bench. You'll be fine. You'll be perfectly fine on the floor. I was like, no, I'm not gonna be fine. I will smuggle in my meditation bench. You cannot take it from me. And then we were so concerned, and other reasons, that we didn't even go. We skipped the retreat. We didn't even show up. I was so worried. And we were like dreaming at the coast to instead do an acid trip, which we never did in the end, but we were just hiding there in nature doing our practice. And I remember how we had like the then meditating alone and under a mosquito net outside next to our guest house in the garden, and also like this 45-minute meditation. And like after 35 minutes or so, waking up from my meditation, like, oh, I think I was only aware for 3 minutes of my breath. For the other 32, I was just like up with the fairies in the past, present, future, lost in some. Couldn't even focus for more than 2, 3 minutes. But there was something special about it. And as a next step, we on the journey went then to Thailand, and we had recommendations to go to a small island there in the Gulf of Thailand. 3, 4 people independently recommended us to go there, and we signed up
There, I
there.
was hardly not going there. Like,
Exactly. Then we
I
signed up
heard
for a Vipassana retreat there
you
on
have
this
to
island.
sleep on the floor. That was the thing. You have to sleep on the wood floor. There's no bed. And I was like, hey, 10 days sleeping on
10
the wood
days on the floor.
Like, I cannot. And then we were in a guest house, and there was an
Now comes
air
the secret.
mattress.
Watch out.
There was an air mattress. And I was like, my God, that's my savior. And I stole the air mattress.
Stole the air mattress. You bring it to the Vipassana Buddhist meditation retreat,
Kirsten!
where
But
they're so
I didn't,
obsessed with all the purity and honesty and non-stealing.
and I didn't even need it, like,
What
because
happened to
it was
Yoma
all
and Yoma?
taken care of. Like, there
She
was,
brought a stolen air bed, air mattress for the swimming to sleep on it.
but I didn't need it. No benches needed.
No
air
benches
mattress.
needed, no air
You
mattress.
can just go into meditation center. It's
The-
fine.
The Beatles called it Los Paranoias. Come on, enjoy us. So anyhow, yeah,
crazy,
many
yeah.
anecdotes like this. Could go on for weeks with those anecdotes.
Yeah.
But maybe how did it come to the center of our
Yes.
life? We then signed up for a 1-month intensive yoga course and stayed for a second month. And then there was an opening in a 500-hour yoga teacher training. But our trip was finished. We had the flight booked back.
Right.
We were running out of money, obviously, end of a 9-month backpacking journey. And had commitments in Germany, whatnot. But then we were so tempted by this 500-hour yoga intensive course after being for 2 months already in the school, studying, learning, and so on. And we somehow felt the call. I remember I called. It was old days before mobile phone. There was a phone booth on the roadside, and we called one of the numbers of the school for somebody responsible there with a coin machine and so on. Finally went through, and then yeah, we still have 3 spots left, but it starts in 10 days. You got to commit now. And we were like, no, but we don't have money. We don't have flight. Flight goes back now and so on. But then we anyhow made it possible. My mother borrowed some money, and a good old friend borrowed some money. Kirsten went to the hospital for some checkup. We went to the next country for a visa run, border run to extend our visa. We changed our flights, and we just made it possible and stayed for the 3-month intensive training there.
Wow.
And just were going for it. And then stayed afterwards a bit longer. And then came back to Germany, to Berlin, then finally really out of money, need to work. And we wanted to open a yoga school in Berlin. We had a strategy, idea in some of the up and coming areas, being one of the early schools there, etc. But then we hosted one of our teachers who was the general manager of that school on the island. We hosted him for a kick-off workshop in Berlin to start off the school. And he said, yeah, it was end of December. It was Berlin, freezing cold, like ice on the sidewalks, really. And we were living in circus caravans, where snow, basically ice on the floor inside of the caravans. And he was like, on the tropical island a few months ago, you looked a bit more happy. It's kind of nice here, but yeah, it's true. On the Paradise Island in your yoga school, it was better. And he was like, yeah. It's already mid-December, but beginning of January, the new season starts, and I'm still looking for a manager in the school to help to organize the place. But you got to decide by tomorrow, latest day after tomorrow, because it's soon, we start in 2 weeks. And we were like, no, we don't have time, money. We're just starting the school, and we don't have money, obviously. No, yes, would be so nice. No, yes, we'll do it. And we sold the circus caravans and the Volkswagen caravan, got some money for the flights, and we directly left again. And then for 2.5 years, I didn't leave Thailand anymore. I just got stuck there with Kirsten, staying and going deeper with full power teaching, education, retreats, just full time, all in, endlessly soaking it up, living on a shoestring. We had zero money to survive. Really, it was so tight. We got the old mangoes, which were black and dodgy from the market lady. She gave us kind of some of the leftover food. We were really on a shoestring. I remember some friends, they had a bag of cashew nuts. I was like, whoa, we could never afford that. Half a kilogram of cashew nut is 1 week of expenses, impossible. But we were blessed on a tropical island doing yoga meditation morning to night. It was just perfect. Full time, immersed, amazing. Full transformation on all levels. So yeah, time is almost up, but we have one third question to take it in the direction of the sharing. So after all that inspiration received, what w- is for you the experience of this inner call to pass on the
Mm.
spirit of yoga? How
Yeah.
to transmit and communicate from the early days when
Mm.
starting to teach? For example, I
Mm.
remember when I was teaching my first meditation, spontaneously put on the spot, they now you teach. I noticed half an hour, my mind was still 20 minutes racing all over the place. And I was like, oh, I cannot lead this meditation when my mind is all over the place.
Mm.
So I felt that call to go deeper into the practice.
Mm.
What were for you pivotal moments where you mentioned already in India, kind of 1,000 people showing up, where you felt you need to step up your game, and how to transmit the heart of yoga? How do you feel that
Mm.
responsibility to communicate the essence of genuine yogic wisdom, and how do you feel inspired and guided in that to uplift other people and give them support to
Mm.
dive onto their own journey?
Mm. It's a beautiful question. You know, as we were kind of sharing all the stories of today with all the kind of tapas, I was feeling like this is basically like our tapas history, like what we
Yeah.
went through
Okay.
to kind of get to
Okay. Yeah, the tapas, the discipline,
the
the,
discipline, the
commitment, the
commitment.
the challenges.
But also, I feel like my teacher said something about tapas once that touched me very deeply. He said, "What is the right amount?" Someone asked him, "What's the right amount of tapas?" And he said, "The amount that you can do with joy."
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that I love so much from your sharing, Kirsten. This like there's this enthusiasm, and that's what's guiding the whole thing. Like there's this love and this knowing that it's right, and that somehow aligns and makes everything fall into place. And in terms of kind of teaching and inspiration, I feel like even in schools with young kids, it's like if you have the kids who are a little bit older teach the ones who are younger, it benefits the older kids and the younger kids.
Yeah.
And I feel like in a weird way, the same is very true with yoga. I remember one time I was leading a meditation and I was teaching a particular pranayama and a very deep technique, and like suddenly just in the middle of a teaching experience, there's 20 people that I'm responsible for in the room, and I just went into the most ecstatic experience of bliss. And it was very, very hard to just be like, remember what you're doing.
Stay present
Remember
with the
there's
people.
people in this room. Remember you have something that you have to be doing right now. But reflecting on it later, I felt it's going to sound kind of counterintuitive almost, but I felt like that experience came because I was helping other people.
Exactly.
Like
exactly.
it came because I was the one who was, steering the ship, if you want to put it that way. And I feel like that's an incredible privilege, an incredible blessing, an
Very much.
incredible opportunity. And I find in our 200-hour course online, I receive countless inspiration from all the students. Countless. I'm just constantly finding myself full of gratitude for their experience and their sharing and their
So true.
learning.
So true.
And also just seeing, like it also gives me, in a certain sense, I feel like a little glimpse into the state of yoga in the world, because I'm talking to people from every part of the world and I'm hearing their experience and what's happening for them. And when I hear their experience, I feel like teachers of real authenticity and heart are desperately needed.
Yeah.
That's the situation, basically. I sometimes tell in the Zoom calls, like we had a man who came, and he was very, very beautiful man living in Amsterdam. He says there's 7 major studios in Amsterdam. I've been to every major studio. I've taken at least one class at every major studio in Amsterdam. Not once did I hear the word ujjayi. I was just like falling off my chair.
What's this
I
Ujjayi
was
breath?
just like,
Ocean breath? What do you mean?
Wait a minute. Like, what is the state of yoga in the world? And you know, I feel like my inspiration to share is manifold, but one of the fold is I hope that we put the spirit of yoga back in yoga. You know, I hope we put the power and the potency and the living, breathing reality of it. And I see it all the time on our calls. People come, they share their experience. It's just like, wow, 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 wow. Just like incredible, incredible, so beautiful. I just
so much inspiration flowing.
Yeah, I find it so alive and inspiring when the practice is just like Kirsten was sharing. When the practice is so alive, you just can't wait for your next opportunity. You can't wait to get on the mat. You can't wait to have another opportunity to go deep into that experience. Like, what a blessing. And in a weird way, how can you not then want to share that in your world? Like, you know, I took a lot of inspiration from our student in America. That she's graduating. She says, "I'm not. I took this course. I wasn't planning on teaching at all. I had no intention to teach.
Sure.
And I just want everybody to know I'm opening my studio in 3 days."
yeah. Exactly.
It was just like, yeah. You know, you find. And it can happen differently for everybody, right? But you find your inspiration. You find what, like, how can you not want to share that?
Exactly. In this more formal scale of teaching a group class, and it comes in all other formats of helping a friend, supporting a colleague with their stiff shoulder, neck, something. Parents,
teaching
kids,
high school kids.
high school,
Kirsten's now
community.
volunteering at Serena's school to teach once a week for the kids there. It's like, you know, you find your opportunities.
Exactly.
You find your way to share.
Exactly. Community centers, etc. And like you described this, you mentioned with this deep meditation when you were guiding the group, this being empowered in quotation marks, just uplifted, the grace is flowing, there's a certain support which we receive when we go with this purity of intention and that open heart into the process, trying to step out of the way, not taking it personal. It's not a performance, not showing off or presenting or pretending, but just being there, available, holding the space, and then the magic flows through. It can be so uplifting, and so many examples could be given also when there's some kind of struggle or challenge in the body, some onset of a flu, disease, something. When it's time to teach, it's just kind of like, whew,
Gone.
gone. So many episodes of that, and so much support and protection, guidance, and thousands of examples in our own experience. And as you described, with the thousands of graduates of our courses, so many anecdotes and surprises and coincidences, synchronicities where things come together. It's so uplifting.
Yeah, for me it is. I've been meeting yoga from different perspectives and really digged myself into, like, from very physical alignment perspectives to more the energetic perspective. I digged myself a bit into philosophy, into history, and so many of those approaches, I feel the heart of it is so much more simple. Like, the heart of yoga is so simple. It is just tending to the given. Tend to your breath, tend to your movement. It's so simple, and it's so underrated or not even seen. So I feel the very essence, the heart, the simplicity of yoga, where the power lies in, where the power of yoga comes from, is just not being shared. And for me, by now, it's really, like, for a while I was really it was important to me that people really learn their correct alignment, are safe in their
Oh yeah.
bodies,
Oh, I
that they
was so
know
obsessed with the alignment.
that they know the right names, that they know that yoga is more than the physical body, that they know about chakras, that I wanted to share about yamas and niyamas and philosophy, but all of that is for me right now. And I want to just pass on how to move body and breath and presence. And I want to preserve that. I want to rescue that. I want to bring that to the next generation. Like, I would love that in 20 years' time, when Serena or her generation is like the ones who practice yoga, that they know about the breath and how to move the body and the breath and how to just lean back in this very very simple act of breathing, moving, receiving, giving, and that just deeply anchors us into the sacredness of life, which is so simple. And this is really by now my kind of mission when I teach. I want to preserve the heart. I want to pass on this simple treasure.
Exactly, and the beauty of simplicity, this just simplifying. Our mind tends to overcomplicate things and try to make it unnecessary complex. Back to the basics, back to the roots, and celebrating this simplicity in nature, in our own nature,
Right.
and sharing our own experience as genuinely and transparently as possible, passing on what we received from our teachers, from the masters, from who we received so much. So this being a solid link in the chain to make sure that the heart of yoga, that essence of awareness in the practice continues to live on. And sure, it gets adapted to different life circumstances
Absolutely.
and walks of life. Well, obviously, everybody has their own biography, their own background, context, commitments, passions, priorities.
orientation,
Exactly, not
shapes,
exactly. So
form.
everybody in their way. It's of course in our demographic, in our context here, kind of we find each other in our Asian yoga communities, but in many ways, wherever you are at, you can be a light in your community and hold the space for the people in your surroundings. And there's so much appreciation. Just, I think it was yesterday or day before yesterday, I was reading from a participant who's somewhere in the Midwest in the US, somewhere Michigan State, somewhere. And she was writing that she doesn't have an on-site yoga course, yoga teacher training here. There's just one teacher. It's kind of hot yoga. It's not really happening anything else. And she wants to bring her interpretation. I think she was actually writing about for young people and making it more, like relatable in the young generation and giving it that touch of like the cool kids vibe and bringing the breath into that in her little village town in the middle of nowhere, somewhere Midwest US. But there's just nobody else doing it. So she's going to open that niche in her subculture with her flavor. She speaks her language, which relates to the people in her community and surroundings, and picking ourselves up where we are and then inspiring others. This peer-to-peer transmission happens so naturally and organically. And there's so much value in kind of reinterpreting the best of the ancient wisdom tradition into our own unique modern life circumstances. And it's an art and a science to bring together our pure, heartfelt intention, the breath, the beauty of simplicity, that spirit of yoga, as we experience it and share that with the people in our surroundings. So that can be in offices, in family homes, schools, like you said, teaching kids yoga in your daughter's school, passing on wherever we're at the small little tips and tricks. I'm obsessed with kind of playing smart ass with other people, like, oh, you should be a bit more like this. like whatever. No, like have a bit less sugar in your water, stay healthy. Huh? Out of good intentions. I see when people are like too much like hurting their body and they might not know about it, then I kind of try to, in a non-smart ass, non kind of provocative and arrogant way, in a heartfelt way, give them some inspiration, send them a resource, a link, or just also with my own example, showing how one can live a more harmonious, balanced life while being imbalanced myself and joking about that. So we uplift each other. We learn from each other about whatever ergonomical body positions and diet and sleep and breathing and all the biohacking stuff, which we've been getting into with the ice baths. We actually recorded a separate podcast, which is kind of surprisingly half dedicated to ice baths.
Ice bath centric.
Ice bath centric yogic podcast. So we share lots of tips and tricks and hacks of the yogic lifestyle. So we trust that the coming episodes and years that we will intend to offer this podcast will provide for you lots of insights, surprises, little hidden secrets about air mattresses being stolen and all types of unusual surprises. So we try to keep it real and connect from heart to heart. And definitely it will be also exciting, not just for us to talk, but as mentioned, to have some of our teachers, grand masters of the yogic tradition, coming either here to our studio or being live in the Zoom calls, in broadcasted podcasts, where we bring to you the essence of yoga. And it has been developing over the last days and weeks also for us. And Kirsten was getting so excited how like, yeah, and we're going to invite this famous teacher and that famous teacher. And then we'll ask them, what is for you the spirit of yoga? How are you preserving that heart of the practice and the awareness? So we'll step up our game and bring you more and more inspiration on all levels. And we trust that you will receive that and will find ways to apply and translate it over into your life circumstances and find more trust and flow and ease in the beauty of simplicity, as Kirsten was describing it so beautifully. So we hope that you had not only some giggling smiles, but also some nice surprises and entertaining, heart-opening moments in this first episode of our new format, the podcast coming every week, buzzing on your ears, on your commute, while you're preparing the meals for your family. And we hope that we will go deeper and deeper on this shared journey. Thank you so much for showing up. And we're looking forward to the next chapters of this shared adventure.
This was Wisdom in Motion with the Akasha family. Keep shining in the spirit of yoga.
On.